Tonight, Batman goes full-on mad scientist, emphasis on the mad. Green Lantern Corps has Mogo explain how it was just a prank, bro. And Superboy gives us Harvest, Year 1. I hate it. All that and more tonight on the Not-So-New 52. Hello everyone and welcome to episode 84 of the Not So New 52. I am your host and hoo boy has it been a busy week for me. Not in terms of comics. For comics it's light as hell and frankly this episode might be a little bit short if I don't pad out this intro a bit, but this episode is being released the day after Easter. And for someone like me, that means I have committed the sin of gluttony by shoving how much candy in my face I don't even know. Additionally, tax day was coming up, and I figured, hey, I might want to do that so I don't get arrested. Turns out my refund's going to be enough to fund 2 whole weeks of new comics. So that's wildly disappointing. Anyway, let's talk about comics that came out this week 10 years ago. This week we have the number 19 issues of Batgirl, Batman, Batman and Robin, Superboy, Green Lantern Corps, Deathstroke, Suicide Squad, and Demon Knights. Additionally, we have the number 4 issue of Threshold, the number 7 issue of Team 7, the number 11 issue of Ravagers, and the 2nd issue of Constantine. So a whole wild smattering there. Not really any events going on, just more in Green Lantern Corps with Wrath of First Lantern, but besides that, it's just a continuation of WTF month, which we established last week is them saying, hey, how can we disrupt the narrative flow of all of these comics as efficiently as humanly possible? Some of them did them quite well. Some of them were Suicide Squad, so be sure to tune into that. But I digress. Let's start talking about comics, of course, with our event of the week, Green Lantern Corps. Green Lantern Corps number 19, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Fernando Pasarin. So this is the next part of Wrath of the First Lantern, and it's like not even a part. It's a big issue. A big thing happens, but it's going to be so quick to read. So the last 2 issues we had Guy and John and Fatality all being tortured, quote unquote, by the First Lantern, and I thought this issue was probably going to be the rest of the Corps, but it turns out the rest of the Corps have been tortured this whole time. They have already been sent down their alternate life paths or whatever, and the First Lantern's basically just taunting them, saying, I'm going to keep doing this forever and ever and ever, and we see a big pile of green rocks just come in and start to coat all of our different Green Lantern Corps members, and everyone's like, what in the hell is going on here? And it turns out that it is severing the connection that the First Lantern has on all the other Corps members. And they don't know what's going on, but it's happening all across Ella. And this voice starts speaking out to them, saying exactly what I said of, oh, I'm severing the connection. Volthoom will not be able to connect with you. He's not going to be able to tear you away from the influence, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's Mogo. Mogo, after John went and found him, has reassembled and is using pieces of himself or herself to bring all the Lantern Corps onto Mogo and away from Volthoom. And everyone's like, oh, hey, Mogo, we're kind of really, really weak, and you are bringing us in at, like, entry speeds. This is going to hurt. And he's like, don't worry, I'll totally protect you. And everyone just crash lands and all lands in one single spot. And Mogo says, all right, cool, you're all here. First Lantern's going to show up in no time at all, so I need you all to get up and be ready to fight. And everyone's like, oh, we can't, we're too weak, oh, it sucks. And then immediately the First Lantern's there like, oh, hey, Mogo, glad you're back. I'm going to see if I can make you scream as well. And he plants his abilities or whatever into Mogo. Mogo starts screaming out in pain. He's like, yeah, that's great. But here's what I'm going to do to piss off everybody else here. I'm going to make constructs that represent their fear and their rage and also their death, because sure, why not? And I'm going to use those, and they have to fight against themselves, but in this stuff. So we get a Black Lantern John, a Yellow Lantern Fatality, and a Red Lantern Guy, as well as various different versions of all the other core members. And it's just a giant fight scene. It goes on for 3 double-page spreads where they're just fighting against each other. And it looks great. I'm not saying it doesn't, but it's just a fight scene. There's nothing I can really elaborate on it besides that. So at some point towards the end of the fight scene here, we see our guys, our heroes, get the upper hand on the constructs, and they all froze up. And mind you, I guess the point of the entire fight scene is to show them slowly building up the will to fight. At the beginning, they're getting knocked around, and then they come together and they find the will. Much like Mogo said they needed to do. But now the constructs have all frozen, and they're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Did we beat the First Lantern? And Mogo says, First Lantern didn't show up. This was all me. I used this to motivate you. I made these fake constructs out of myself because that's part of my ability in order to motivate you and have the willpower to fight. And now you know that you are strong enough to blah, blah, blah. You get the gist of it. They have willpower. And at that point, everyone's like, you know, Mogo, you're right. We did it. We'll go out there and we're going to beat the First Lantern. And everyone raises up their rings and says the oath, including Fatality, which is weird considering she's Indigo Tribe, but whatever. Or no, she's Star Sapphire. My bad. But that's where the issue ends. That's it. And I have a real issue with this. So what I've been saying throughout this whole Wrath of the First Lantern thing is I don't feel like we've seen why the First Lantern is the biggest bad. Why everyone keeps talking like, oh, he could, if we kill him while he has this power, it will destroy all life in the universe. And it's like, okay, but like, that's not him being bad. That's just a thing he has. What makes him powerful? What makes him a force that needs to be stopped? And I felt like this issue had it. This issue, it made an entire planet cry out in pain, and then it made these constructs of all the other Green Lantern Corps members to fight against them one-on-one. That felt like the level of power I've been looking for. And then it turns out it wasn't him. It turns out it was just Mogo being Mogo. And I feel like I care even less about the First Lantern now. The fact that he wasn't even here. This had nothing to do with the First Lantern. The entire 7-page fight scene in this book had nothing to do with the First Lantern. I feel let down, frankly. So yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of just, we are getting to the stopping point. Green Lantern 20 is going to be the big wrap up of all this. And I feel like we haven't set it up. I feel like we haven't done it. Like, yeah, we're going to wrap up all the plot lines that are going on, but I feel like they're just going to smoke First Lantern because he's done nothing to show why he's so powerful this whole time. We've heard people talk about him be powerful, but he's done nothing, and this issue only furthers that, in that he didn't do anything when an entire planet stopped in and said, nope, you can't have these anymore, and just yoinked them away. If he can't take down a single planet, John took down 2 planets. You tell me First Lantern can't show up and just be like, no, Mogo, poof, and that's it. I don't know. I'm annoyed by it, I guess is the biggest thing. Is that this would have been perfect to give the First Lantern some actual powers, and they just threw it away. So, yeah, overall, I got to give this one like a, I don't know. The art's fine, the fight scene is okay, but it's just the overall conceit of the comic upsets me. So I'm going to give this one a 5.5. I'm getting real tired of First Lantern, and I don't really care what happens next. Batman number 19, written by Scott Snyder, art by Greg Capullo. So Brand new arc, more or less. We open up at Gotham National Bank, where there is a hostage situation going on inside. Gordon pulls up and talks to Bullock, and he's like, hey, are you positive the guy who's doing this is the guy you think is doing this? And Bullock's like, I am absolutely sure the guy inside is who we think he is. And Gordon starts calling out commands, just like, all right, well, please don't do this. You don't have to get hostages involved. We can talk this down. Let's start a conversation. And we see the man exit with a hostage, and the man is Bruce Wayne. And Gordon's like, why are you robbing a bank? What are you doing, Bruce? What's going on here? And he tells the hostage, like, all right, tell him your name. And she says Martha, and she's like, why did you say that name? And then they reveal that Martha is wearing a dynamite vest that Bruce is going to explode if they don't let him go. And Gordon tries to walk up and is like, hey, dude, you're a billionaire. Why are you robbing a bank? What do you have any use for this money? And he's like, you know what? Fair point. And he takes the duffel bag of money and throws it over at Gordon, distracting him long enough for Bruce to make it onto a motorcycle with a shotgun strapped to the back. Gordon pulls out a pistol and he's like, don't do it. Don't make me fire. And then Bruce just racks the shotgun and shoots Gordon in the chest. And Gordon is, of course, wearing some level of, like, bulletproof armor. But Bruce's shirt comes undone, as Gordon did unload a few shots in him. And it looks as though he's wearing the Bat outfit. And Gordon sees it. And he's like, What are you doing, Bruce? And Bruce is like, yeah, well, you know, sometimes being a hero gets old. Then we cut to 6 days ago. And Batman is chasing down a truck full of flowers, and turns out that there is someone inside, some villain named Reaper, who is sending these poisoned flowers to a funeral or something to get back at whoever's funeral it is. Has something to do with the crime family. Doesn't matter. He goes on this long rant about how, like, oh, well, the ancient Greeks believed that flowers sent messages. And I was like, Scott, buddy, we're in the middle of a chase scene. Could we maybe not go on the rant about what flowers mean? But regardless, he takes down Reaper, and it turns out that Robin was the one who stopped the truck. And they have a little moment, and Robin's like, wait a minute, are you recording this? And Batman's like, I record all of our encounters. And Damian's like, well, whatever. So then we see that this didn't actually happen 6 days ago. 6 days ago was just Bruce watching the video of this happening, and he's just watching videos with his son in it because, of course, Robin died. And Alfred comes down to the cave. He's like, sir, you've been watching videos for, like, a really long time. And he's like, I'll be up in a minute, Alfred. Leave me alone. And Alfred tries to talk him out of it. And he's just like, stop. Just let me brood. That's all I'm doing. And Alfred says, all right, well, either way, are you going to return your calls and whatnot? And he's like, nope, later. And he's like, okay, well, there's a funeral for someone in Wayne Enterprises. Are you going to go to that? And he's like, no, like, you think I'm okay to go to a funeral right now? And he's like, fair enough. Yeah, I'll tell them it's weird that that guy committed suicide anyway. And they're like, well, we're talking about the same guy here, Brian Wade. And Alfred's like, yeah, he committed suicide. And Bruce is like, no, he didn't. That doesn't make any sense. And he goes over to his computer, pulls up a file. Turns out this guy had some horrible disease, totally fatal, but he was getting treatment on it and therefore had no reason to commit suicide. And he was actually on the upswing of recovery. And Bruce was like, okay, let me check like what's going on in the GCPD. And it turns out that the police were on the verge of arresting this guy for like mass murder of a bunch of Penguin goons. And they got him on fingerprints, blood, facial recognition. And Batman's like, well, that doesn't make any... I'm going to go figure this one out. And Alfred's like, okay, well, I'll send flowers to the funeral, I guess. So they go into Wayne Tech, and it turns out this guy was the principal architect who built like a lot of the buildings that Bruce was putting up in Gotham. So he was a cool dude. But Batman goes into his private jet logs and discovers that Brian wasn't actually in the country at the time of the murders, so it couldn't have been him. But then as he turns around, Brian's there with a flamethrower, attacks Batman, and he's like, oh, you shouldn't be here, Batman. And Batman throws a batarang into his cheek. He runs out down to a subway station. Batman gives chase, but he is unable to find Brian. He can't get any facial recognition matches, but he does find the Batarang, which is now bloodstained. So he runs that through the Batcomputer. Batcomputer's like, it's Brian, man. I don't know what you want me to say. It's 100% Brian. And he's like, well, run it again. He's like, look. And of course the Batcomputer's not being this sassy, but he's like, look, there is nothing except for some itty-bitty little trace elements of some other crap. And he's like, okay, well, tell me what the trace elements of that other crap is. And okay, well, it's the DNA of Basil Carlo, a.k.a. Clayface. And Batman's like, oh, you didn't think that was important to mention that Clayface DNA's in there? So Batman then reasons out, all right, every time that Clayface is transformed, he's kept his own DNA. That's just how he works. But now it seems that he's evolved in some way, and even down to the molecular level, he is transforming into his targets. So that's a problem, because if he so much as touches like Batman, he'll be able to know I'm Bruce Wayne. So he goes to Wayne Tech, he contacts Lucius Fox. Lucius comes up and is like, oh, what are you going to need, Mr. Wayne? And he's like, okay, Batman asked me to get a new suit because Clayface has evolved. And he's like, oh, evolved? That sounds like a big problem. I'll be sure to start on that suit right away. And Bruce just kind of looks at Lucius and he's like, how'd you enjoy the funeral, Lucius? And he's like, oh, it was very moving. And then Bruce just runs over to get a fire extinguisher to use as a weapon. And Lucius, his mouth like flies open and Clayface just starts strangling Bruce with his clay. And he's like, I don't know how you knew it was me, but either way, I'm gonna take your life now. So he uses his clay to get Bruce's DNA. And they say, oh, we're twins now, don't you see? Today, brother, you're gonna help me end Batman once and for all. And that's the issue. I liked it. I think it's a super solid setup. I think it did a good job of, in the intro, setting up the shock and awe of like, oh my god, Bruce Wayne, he's actually doing this thing. And even when it's obvious he's not doing the thing, you're still concerned because Bruce was wearing the Batman outfit. Like, that was visibly seen. So I'm interested to see how they're going to be able to flip that back around and make it so Bruce is like, no, I'm clearly not Batman. That doesn't make any sense. Even after that, or more importantly, whether or not Clayface knows that Bruce is Batman is also going to be interesting to see. Either way, I'm down for it. I'm enjoying it. I mean, Capullo's art's great. There's a page where Lucius, starts transforming back into Clayface. Horrifying imagery. Absolutely love it. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it an 8, but it would probably be an 8.5 if it just, I know that we're doing the whole Damian is dead thing and he's still getting over that. He's still working through that. But it feels like he doesn't want to do that, It feels like this story is being told in spite of that. And he feels he has to have the time of him getting over Damian, but it's not actually the focus of the story. So I would have preferred, I guess, he just dropped it if he's not going to actually play with it in any meaningful way, but maybe that's just me. But either way, I'll give it an 8. I do enjoy it. Batman and Robin number 19, written by Peter Tomasi, art by Patrick Gleason. So last issue was an all-silent issue where it was just Batman grieving the entire time. But there was one point in there where there was a stack of movies, and they were labeled for Damian, and it said it was from CK, which we never got clarification on who that was. But this issue opens up with Carrie Kelly, who, for anyone who knows the Dark Knight Returns by Frank Miller series, kind of important. And we see a teenaged Carrie Kelly driving her car, eating pizza, reciting Shakespeare, as one does. And as she gets to a red light, some creeps pull up next to her and say, hey, baby, how about you share that pizza with us? And she says, okay, and throws the whole pizza at them through the window. We see that she was on her way to the Wayne Manor. And as she knocks on the door, there's no answer. So she leaves this stack of books there with a note saying, hey, here's the bill for our last few weeks. 10 sessions means $1,000. And I don't know what they're for. They're apparently kinescope copies of something. I don't know. Regardless, Bruce is like, who's this girl and why did she know my son? He never mentioned anything about this. And Alfred's like, maybe because he has his own space where he can do things. And it's like, oh, you're saying I don't give my son enough space? And it's like, you're saying this in the present tense, right? Yeah. And so he manages to go to the college where Carrie is, and she's at a party. Bruce knocks on the door, and Carrie answers the door dressed as Robin, because apparently this is a superhero dress-up costume party. And Bruce sees this, and he's just like, oh, you have no idea what that did to me. So here is the stuff you left for my son. He's not going to need him. Don't come back. And he walks away. And Carrie's like, wait, hold on. What do you, huh? And she's trying to get answers about where Damien is. And Alfred's just like, okay, we're going to go now. Bye. So then we cut to Frankenstein because his book got canceled. And he's fighting against some eldritch monstrosities and whatnot. But then all of a sudden he is engulfed in some sort of gel and grapple hooked out by the Batjet. And obviously Batman is like, all right, got him. Alfred hops on the comms like, oh, hi, hey, I've been trying to call you for 6 days. You haven't checked in. And it says that the Batjet is somewhere near the Arctic Circle. You want to fill me in on what's going on? And he's like, oh, I'm just carving out a little private space for myself. Like you said my son should have. Isn't that right, Alfred? Batman out. And then Alfred's like, okay, he's clearly not doing well. Let's go ahead and call in somebody. So he calls up Tim Drake and says, hey, you busy right now? So we then cut to Victor Frankenstein's castle. And Frankenstein, he wakes up and he's like, ah, Batman, good to finally meet you. Kinda not cool with the whole kidnapping thing. Definitely not cool with being back in this castle. And Batman's like, all right, Frankenstein, let me be frank with you here. This castle and you are evidence that the dead can be brought back to life without sacrificing other people, without killing. I need that. I need you to help guide me through that process using your old master's methods so that I can resurrect my son. And Frankenstein is like, I'm sorry, you kidnapped me and you expect me to help you out? Not only that, you think I'd be cool with that? Dude, I am a monster. I am not, my whole thing is that I protect humanity from things that they don't want to deal with, and I'm thinking this is one of those things. And Batman's like, I don't need anyone to tell me what I can deal with. I know what I can deal with. I'm Batman. I'm going to bring him back. And they're like, you just have a couple of cadavers here, like of boys your son's age. And he's like, they all died unrelated to my stuff. I just reappropriated them from the hospitals. And so he hooks Frankenstein up to some electrodes, and Frankenstein busts out of the gel. And they start fighting. And he's like, Batman, look, I get it. I understand. I had a son once. That was a whole story arc in my book. I get having your son die. And he's like, no. You don't get anything. You don't understand. I can't deal with this loss. I am not about to say he's dead. So therefore, we're going to bring him back. And basically, as Frankenstein looks like he has the upper hand, Batman launches a trap that electrifies Frankenstein. And he's like, look, you're going to help me one way or another, whether you like it or not. So then we cut to Tim Drake, who's flying in. He's on the comms with Alfred. And I love this panel layout where all the panels are stitched together a la Frankenstein. And Tim's basically just chewing out Batman to Alfred. He's like, man, he's such a dick ever since Death in the Family. I don't want to talk to him. And Alfred's like, okay, but like he really needs somebody. And you're the only person with a jet that I know of. So like, can you please? So Tim arrives and he's looking around. He finds a bunch of gross stuff and he finally makes his way to Batman. And he's like, Batman, what in the hell are you doing? And Batman has removed all of the stitching that was holding together Frankenstein and has basically, he's just completely in separate parts right now. And he's like, oh, don't worry, I'm going to put him back together. And Frankenstein's like, hey, I hope you're here to save me. And basically, Batman calls out Tim, like, Alfred sent you, right? And he's like, yeah, he's worried, and now so am I. This isn't right, man. And Batman's like, whatever, just go back to your stupid little Teen Titans team. I'm busy here. And basically, Tim calls out, like, hey, he's dead. He's gone. You need to accept that. And Batman's like, I died. Superman died. We're in a comic book, man. He's not going to stay dead. I'm just speeding up the process. So go and get out of here. And Tim's like, all right, I didn't want to have to do this, but I'm going to go ahead and do this. And he starts fighting against Batman, pulling out some batterings and whatnot. Frankenstein's decapitated head is like, Batman, for real, I am a crime against nature, and your son would not want to be that. You take it from me, man, not what he wants. But they're not listening, and Tim's like, didn't want to have to do this, Batman, but you left me no choice. And he uses his jet that he flew in on to blow up the entirety of Frankenstein's lab. And Batman is so ungodly pissed. He's just standing in the fire. Tim walks up behind him, just like, hey, man, I hope you understand. And Batman just turns around, gets right in his face. It looks like he's about to throw a punch. Tim goes full, like, chin tucked into his neck, like, oh, God. And Batman just grapples out and leaves Tim with Frankenstein. Frankenstein's like, could you maybe sew back at least my arm to my body, and then I can take care of the rest? So then we go one last time to Carrie Kelly, who's doing some weird Connect game with her roommate, and basically saying, oh, yeah, no, I don't know what happened to Damien, but, like, I'm still trying to figure out what's going on with that. I'm not going to give up on that so easily, because that kid was different in a lot of ways. But at the very least, Bruce did come back and paid Carrie for her time. She only wanted $1,000. Bruce anteed up and raised it to a $10,000 check. So there's that. All right. Try to keep it brief here. This is going to be a story arc that goes over the 5 stages of grief. This is denial, where he's like, he's not dead. I can bring him back. We're going to go through the rest of them. I already know that's how the story's going. That being said, I really like it. I really like this idea that Batman, because if you're ever going to have a character that can't deal with death in a healthy way, it's Batman. I think that's fair. I think that's a good way to look at the character of he is presented this death. How does he deal? And moving through the stages of grief is a perfectly good story arc, and I like to see how he's going to be able to explore his options here. I think next up is anger or rage or something like that. I think that's the next one on the list, because I know bargaining is third. So yeah, I'm interested in it. I like the art style, the moments here. I think Tim's probably the weakest part of it, but I really like how they brought in Frankenstein, because yeah, Frankenstein is just 100% proof that death need not be permanent. The other thing I need to mention, though, is Carrie Kelly. I don't know if this is the end of Carrie's arc. If it is, it feels like it's just kind of a gimmick for the sake of WTF month that DC is having. But it could turn into something bigger. I'm not opposed to it, I guess is what I'm saying. I just need to see where they're going with it. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. I think it's really good. The only thing that I'm iffy on is the Tim Drake stuff, and depending on where we end up with Carrie. I think this issue handled it well enough, but if we get more of it, I think this might be a bit too much of a closed story to get that later stuff, if that makes any sense. Batgirl number 19, written by Gail Simone, art by Daniel Sampere. So Gail Simone was off for 2 issues because DC is stupid, and that's all I'm going to say about that. But last issue, we had James Gordon Jr. Calling up Barbara's mom, saying, hey, I've got Barbara here, and I'm going to kill her if you don't meet me at the old aquarium at 5 o'clock. So this issue picks up with a flashback of Junior and Barbara watching some old horror movies that her dad let them watch. And at one point, Junior looks away from the screen, and Barbara's like, oh, it's okay. It's just a movie. And Junior's like, I'm not looking away because it's too scary. I'm looking away because of how sloppy the killer is. And we see the same movie as on TV in Alicia, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, in her apartment, and there's a knock at the door. She gets a baseball bat, but it's Barbara there, and she's like, hey, I think we need to mend this fence. I think there's a lot going on. And Alicia starts chewing her out, saying, oh, you left me tied up with 3 criminals handcuffed in our living room. What's going on? And then she just drops a baseball bat and says, like, oh, I thought something horrible happened to you. And they hug each other. And then Barbara just starts telling her everything. She says, yes, the Joker shot me. I was paralyzed for a while. That's why there's a wheelchair ramp in my van. Also, my brother was the one who was trying to court you, and the cat was a thing from our past, and he's a psychopath. So she just lays it all out, and Alicia, she's like, I'm trying to like subconsciously scare her away so she's not putting more harm, but like she takes it all in stride. And then Alicia drops the bomb. She's like, I also have something to tell you. I'm trans. And Barbara's like, okay, cool. Like, she doesn't make a big deal out of it. It's just whatever. But then they hug each other, and Barbara gets a phone call saying, okay, got it. I understand. I'll be there. It's not clear who's on the other end of the phone. But either way, Barbara hops on her bat cycle, gets in her costume. She's like, yeah, I told Alicia everything except for being Batgirl, because, like, I don't think I should really do that part. But regardless, she knows that I got some things going on in my life. So then we cut to the GCPD, and Gordon gets a call from Junior saying, hey, Dad, kind of reaching the end game here. Gonna be doing some crazy stuff. Meet us at the aquarium as soon as you can. Oh, and by the way, 2 cops were asking me questions about what I'm doing, so they're dead now. Bye. So then we cut to the old aquarium, and Barbara is, and when I say Barbara, I mean old Barbara, the mom, is on the carousel, and she's having a flashback to Junior riding one of the horses and having a great time. And then Junior stands up and he's like, hey, Mom, glad you can make it. How's the finger? You know, I thought about getting it to you so it could be reattached, but then I just threw it away. Isn't that funny? So at that point, Batgirl has already arrived. She jumps in the middle so that Junior can't shoot their mom. And Junior's like, okay, Batgirl, like, I get it, but I'm still going to fire this shot. And Batgirl's like, that seems pretty sloppy for you, using a gun. And it's just like, I'm pretty sure I could, like, mess up your body even afterwards to make it look neat anyway. And he starts shouting at them saying, oh, do you think I would ever forgive you, blah, blah, blah. And then he turns to Mom and just be like, hey, Mom, did you know that Barbara is Batgirl? Oh, yeah, that's right, I'm going there. And the mom's just like, yeah. Nah, she told me. And also this. And she pulls out a gun and seemingly shoots Junior. It seems like in the face. But obviously it's just like a shoulder shot or something like that. And Batgirl takes the gun, just being like, don't shoot him. What's the matter with you? And as she looks back, Junior's already gone. He manages to sneak up behind Batgirl with a mallet and like cracks her head. And she's like, okay, I'm kind of blacking out now, so I'm just, Mom, you need to get away. And his Junior standing over top of her, just being like, you know, I think I'm going to put you back in a wheelchair because you were a lot more manageable when you were like that. Now that you're running around again, you're too much trouble for me. So he's about to paralyze her, I guess. And she's like, nope, not doing that. And just starts beating the ever-loving crap out of Junior. And she's like, you know what? You took everything from our family. You are the worst. From now on, I'm an only child. And as she's laying into him, he's just like, no, you'll never be free from me. I'm always going to be there, and I'm always going to ruin your lives. And the mom's like, why do you hate us so? Like, what is going on? And Junior basically lays out he was jealous of Barbara because Barbara was such like a high-scoring academic, and she did like ballet and stuff like that. He always felt that she was getting more attention, more love, and he's not a fan of that. So at that point, he takes the mom hostage with a box cutter, and he's just like, okay, I'm done with this. I'm ending this now. I'm killing her. Say bye, Barbara. And Barbara had 2 batarangs she mentioned earlier, a razor one and a concussive one. And she's like, I got to take him out. I got to do what I can. And so she reaches in, pulls out the razor batarang, and it lands directly in Junior's eye. And as he's falling, they're on a pier, mind you. As he's falling over the pier, they specifically point out that there is an injury to his spine as he falls into the sea down below. And yeah, doesn't look like he survives. And the mom starts crying out, and Batgirl holds her back, and she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom. I'm so sorry." But then Gordon shows up, and he has his gun drawn on Batgirl, saying, "You're under arrest for the murder of my son. I just watched you do it. Like, get off of my ex-wife and get over here." And she's like, "I can't believe that it has all come to this. I feel like I might have to use my concussive battering on my own father. I'm out of here." And so she jumps off the pier down into the water below, and she's like, "Oh, tonight I became an only child, and I might as well have become an orphan as well." So, a lot of big plays. Here's the thing. I think last issue I was saying how much I wanted this to get to a head, get to the point of like, okay, he's making big moves, he's doing big things. And like, we're there, we did it, he made his big play, but in the end, what even was the play? Like, I never understood during any of this what Junior's goal was. What did he want to happen? I understand that he wanted his family to suffer. He wanted to cause suffering in like a general sense, but I don't know. It just seemed like there was never an end game here. I guess the end game was he eventually kills them, but even when they met up, oh, and that's the other thing. Very clearly last issue, Junior is the one who said, "Meet at the aquarium." And yet this issue, it flips it around and says the mom actually suggested that because it reminded her of when Junior was actually a happy, well-adjusted child. So, I mean, it doesn't really amount to anything. It's just a weird little continuity hiccup. And the other thing is, I'm also not a fan of the fact that Junior's whole thing is that he was jealous of Barbara. Like, why can't he just be a psychopath? Why can't he just have a different brain chemistry? I dislike the fact that there is this thing that if the parents had done differently, Junior would have been okay. I like the idea more that he is just broken in his own special way, and there's nothing that could have been done to change that. Because now you're putting the onus on Gordon not being a good enough father, and that just seems poor to me. It seems like a poor choice. So, yeah, not really happy with the way this whole Junior arc shook out. I guess we'll see next time if he's missing an eye and or paralyzed. It seems like that's the way they're going with it. I wanted there to be a bigger thing, and this never quite delivered on that. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 6.5, and that's only because my expectations should not affect what the book actually is, and what the book sets out to do is fine. It's not great. Like I said, I have a few issues, but it's fine. So, yeah. Superboy number 19, written by Scott Lobdell, art by R.B. Silva and Diogenes Neves. Last issue, we had Dr. Psycho delving into Superboy's mind. He met Lex Luthor in there, and Lex said, and I quote, "It's time for you to learn who you are." And then this issue just doesn't even. Like, it just doesn't. This is the life and times of Harvest. I'm not kidding. So, we open up with Harvest back when he was just a normal dude, apparently in the 30th century, where metahumans have gone crazy and they are sick of playing heroes, so they started like enslaving humanity, and Harvest is a normal human who is just going around killing them. And he kills this one in the fields of war, whatever, and he's like, "Yep, nope, this was what I did. I didn't hate them, like I didn't take any joy in what I did, but they had to be taken out." And he has a son named Ven, and apparently one night in the middle of the night, Ven was kidnapped by metahumans, and they found his body 2 days later. So clearly he's not too happy with them. So then he hears rumors that the science police are looking into how to time travel, a la time bubbles. Has not been invented yet, but they're on the road. So he breaks into the science police building, kills a bunch of people in there, just innocent people, and he goes and he says, "All right, I'm going to use your chronal energy that you've been working on for time travel, and I'm going to go back to the first generation of metas, and I'm going to kill all of them, so that way we never get to this point where my son is killed. And so he does that, but apparently, because it's so unstable, it takes him years to figure out how to get back to the point where he goes, and he's kind of like quantum leaping his way there as well. I don't know. Regardless, he arrives back at a point where Superman and Lois Lane have a kid named John Kent, which, if you know current continuity, is weird because it lines up perfectly. But regardless, he's half Kryptonian, half human. He has like even more abilities than Superman. And for a couple years, everything's cool. But then as soon as he hits his 4th birthday, give or take, he falls deathly ill. And everyone's like, it's because he's half Kryptonian, half human. His cells are rejecting each other. And they go to everyone they can think of. They even go to Lex Luthor. There's nothing. There's nothing that anyone can do. So on the day their son died, Superman and Lois went into the Fortress of Solitude and were never seen again. However, Harvest, being from the future, realizes that he's just in the equivalent of a Kryptonian healing coma, and if he's given proper attention and whatnot, he'll actually make it out perfectly fine. So Harvest picks him up and he's like, I should kill you because you're a meta, but I'm going to use you as my weapon against the other metas. So he incubates him, makes sure he's okay, and then raises him as his own son, and has him go around fighting like Steel and other superheroes in meta of the time. And it's all going pretty well until one day, a couple years later, the exact same thing happens again of his body rejecting him. However, this time it's not a Kryptonian healing coma thing, it's just his body is actually breaking down. And Harvest is like, okay, the only way I can make this work is if I get even more genetic material from Superman from like the past, because Superman disappeared in this timeline. So I'm being torn apart every time I go back into the past, but I got to do it because I've grown to actually love my new adoptive son. So I need to go get him. So they went back in time 5 years ago again to end up at the beginning of Superman's time. And he's like, all right, I'm going to make a Kryptonian human hybrid, and that I'll be able to grow him for parts, basically. That's Superboy. That's where that comes from. And then he says the whole thing of like, oh, I need to stop the metas here and now, or nowhere at all. Get it? Nowhere. And then he's like, oh, and I need to harvest these metas' abilities, and there will be a culling. And he's basically just saying, here's why I made all the things I made. And what it basically comes down to is he's still on his anti-meta warpath, and he's trying to make that thing happen while at the same time getting genetic material in order to save his adoptive son in an alternate timeline, I guess now, which I don't even get. So either way, he's like, okay, cool. They're all working on Superboy. I reach out to the Teen Titans, specifically Tim Drake, says, hey, we're all on the same side fighting for humanity. Can't we work together? And then he sees Superman kissing Wonder Woman. And he's like, oh, wait, that's not supposed to happen. I guess that I can actually alter time. Like, time is still malleable at this point. I can make it so things don't have to happen the same way. So once he has his Ravagers, he's like, cool, I can take out all the metas right now. I don't even have to worry about my adoptive son even existing. So that's neat. And he orders Superboy to be destroyed, but of course Superboy fights back. We see the events of Teen Titans and Superboy and all that happen, and he's like, okay, so my plans here are still to do that other stuff. I don't know what's going to happen now at this point, but I've been monitoring Superboy this whole time. And then they say that the cliffhanger at the end of the last issue, he's like, I don't even know who Dr. Psycho is, but Lex Luthor is just a subliminal thought that Luthor put into Superboy's head when they first met. Okay, sure, whatever. And then we get back into the fight, and Superboy's like, oh man, that took me like 2 months to take care of Plasmus over the course of 2 issues. That's ridiculous. And then Harvest chimes back in, and he's like, yeah, when hell tore apart Superboy's genome, it was finally it allowed for the process that I'm finally able to save my son, who I guess I brought with me into this new timeline. And we see him with his son in this new timeline, John Kent, and he's like, I'm just a father trying to save my son. That's Harvest's backstory. Okay. Question 1. Why? Why was this? We had the entire thing set up of let's get Superboy's backstory, and admittedly we did. Admittedly, this is Superboy's backstory, but all of a sudden we just hard pivot onto, well, let's actually figure out who Harvest is. That's the more important story here, and I don't care. I am happy that we are getting some level of backstory with him, in the sense that I don't think we ever figured out what his deal was. But the fact that he's from the future, we established that. That was over several different stories. And he's trying to save the world for his son, and he's very anti-meta, but he uses metas to kill the other metas. It's just, it feels like there was an entire jigsaw puzzle made around Harvest. And when Scott Lobdell finally decided, oh yeah, let me tell you his backstory, he realized that the pieces don't quite line up with each other anymore. And so he just kind of mashed this piece in there until the image kind of looked right. He had a concept for what he wanted to do, but somewhere along the way it got lost. And now it just doesn't make any goddamn sense. So yeah, this is Harvest's backstory. Art's okay. It's perfectly serviceable, but I'm more so focused on the fact of this was just so out of nowhere, completely unnecessary. I don't get it. And the fact that there's just an alternate timeline John Kent is currently in a coma somewhere. That's blowing my goddamn mind right now. So I gotta give this one I don't know. How do you even, it's so weird. I'll give it a 6 flat, because for the story they wanted to tell of Harvest, it's not bad. It's not a bad origin story. It's not great, but it's there. It's just so weird that it's here, you know? It's so weird that it's in Superboy 19, because sure, why not? Harvest isn't going to be getting his own series, so yeah, I don't even know what more to say. It's just a whatever issue. Threshold number 4, written by Keith Giffen, art by Tom Raney and Phil Winslade. Last issue, there's 7 plots. They find out that Call's Green Lantern battery is somewhere on the planet, and they need to go get it. And by they, I mean everyone. So this issue picks up somewhere on the outer regions of the Tenebrian Dominion, and all of the guards are being attacked, and they're hopelessly outmatched. They have no idea how to stop this thing. And they show a giant ship crashing through their defenses, I guess. It's in space, but it just looks like a giant ring of machinery. But to cut a long story short, it's Brainiac's ship. For anyone who knows it's a giant skull. It's Brainiac's ship. So then we cut back to Tolerance, where Stealth is being followed by that one girl in the bar from last issue, Ember. And as she's trying to follow, Stealth gets the upper hand, just being like, why are you following me? And she's like, it's because you're the longest competing contestant on the show. And she's like, so what does that matter to you? She's like, I wanted to pick up some few tips from you. And Ember's trying to talk her way out of it. And Stealth's like, oh my God, you're lonely, aren't you? That's pathetic. And then we don't get back to them. So all of a sudden, Call is talking to Star Hawkins and his robot wife, which they clarify in this issue that this is a normal, helper robot that people have, but Hawkins uploaded his ex-wife's personality into it because he didn't want her to be able to rest in peace or something, so they just hate each other. It doesn't really come up, but I just wanted to mention that. So they point out the slug guy, his home is where they know that his battery is, And the robot's like, yeah, no, I went in there and pretended I was cleaning staff, and he didn't even notice. And they're keeping it inside a warehouse that's within folded space inside of his penthouse. So they're trying to figure out how to get in there. And Hawkins throws out the idea of Imskin technology, which apparently means the word shrinking. So there's that. Meanwhile, K-Rot and his crew, who were hired to get the battery, are like, well, there's no way we could possibly get into Adonis's place, even if we know it's in there. What are we supposed to do? And the one girl on the team is like, oh, there's a servant entry. We can get in there. And K-Rod's like, nice, awesome, maybe we can do this. And then we cut to Adonis, who's being told by some upper person in the Tenebrian Dominion, like, hey, we are going to basically give up a little bit of our dominion to a mysterious benefactor, and it's going to be exactly where your penthouse is. So we're just going to give you the fair warning that you need to evacuate. And he's just like, oh man, but I like this house. And he's like, okay, well, you normally wouldn't even get a evacuation notice. We're giving it to you because you're somewhat useful. And he's like, fair enough. I'll go down and take the summer home. So he starts leaving. Meanwhile, we see the robot wife has Jediah shrunken down and hiding in her hair, and she's making her way into Adonis's building. Meanwhile, she sees another robot, a service droid, that is coming up as an organic host. And he's like, wait a minute, organic? That doesn't make any sense. Scan it. Who is it? And she's like, oh, it looks like a giant rabbit. And Jediah's like, oh, that's K-Rod. He threw me against that blue beetle last issue. I'm going to beat him up. Get me close to him. I'm going to beat the crap out of him. So they pass each other in a hallway. Jediah jumps over onto K-Rod. It's just like, hey, K-Rod, I'm going to beat your brains out of your ears. And he manages to get them shoved into a closet on the hallway so they can K-Rod can decloak and Call can grow again. And he starts threatening him and just being like, hey, man, I thought you were dead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it. I mean, you're an old friend of mine. And he's just like, oh, yeah, try again. And K-Rod reveals, like, I know where your power battery is. It's somewhere in here. We got hired to get it. And Jedi's like, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get here too. But you're getting paid for this? Like, dude, you're awful. And he's like, no, we're not stealing it. We're not stealing the power battery. We were just told to move it away from here for some reason. And Call's like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would someone want it just moved? And then all of a sudden the robot is like, hey guys, you two decloaked, and that set off literally every alarm in this building. So we're in trouble. And giant slug guy Adonis, he's notified, like, hey, you know there's a couple of contestants who are in your building right now. And he's like, well, it's not really my building, and it won't be in like 5 minutes. So I'm just going to leave, and they can go ahead and be sorted out. But then we see the bride apparently is outfitted with a whole bunch of weapons, and she manages to take out all the threats in the hallway, though she is severely damaged in the process. So she collapses, and she's like, Call, take my memory chip, preserve me. And he's like, yeah, totally, I'll get you back to Star. And she's like, no. So at that point, K-Rod and Call are like, all right, we can team up, we can get the power battery, and we can still make this work. So they go and they find the slug guy who's about to hop on his transport out of there. And we see something land on slug guy's head. I should name him. It's Adonis. His name is Bleeding Adonis. The slug guy looks around, sees K-Rot, and literally all of his men just open fire on K-Rot. And he's like, crap, I didn't think all of them were loaded. And as Adonis is saying, man, he threw something at me, but I don't see anything. What's going on? Call unshrinks, and he's like, it was me. Now I'm going to strangle you for what you did to me. You got my power battery. Where is it? And he's like, dude, how dare you touch me? You're filth, and I'm Adonis. Get out of here. So they start fighting each other, and they manage to get the slug thrown out of the transport. They land back on the rooftop, and Call says, all right, tell me where my power battery is. And he's like, dude, it's not going to matter in like 10 seconds. And all of a sudden there's this blinding flash of light, and he's like, I was hoping to be away by the time this happened, but oh well. And all of a sudden the penthouse building and all the surrounding buildings just disappear from the center of this city, And we see Brainiac's ship flying away as he has bottled this city from tolerance. And yeah, he's just kidnapped everyone there because that's what Brainiac do. Okay. I appreciate that we're really just focused on the singular plot of we need to get the power battery back. And then we just threw in this thing that was set up and resolved all in the same issue of Brainiac took this city. He has taken our main characters as far as the plot is concerned, and now they have to figure out how to get out of that. This is what I wanted more of. Yes, there's this overarching plot of he needs to get his Green Lantern ring back so that he can, or his battery back, so that he has a chance to fight and survive. This is the overarching plot I like. And then within each individual issue, it just focuses on a smaller resolving plot. We don't have to jump to the Blue Beetle story. We only spent 1 page on the Stealth story. I'm okay with this. It's only when it's so 8 lines, all of them waiting, that I'm frustrated with this book. So I really did appreciate how they handled this one. So overall, art-wise, good. Didn't really notice where it switched art styles as much. I had a hint at points, but it wasn't horribly different. So overall, I'm going to give this one, I'll give this 7. I think this is a turn in the right direction. It's keeping it interesting for me. And yeah, no, even though we've gotten away from the conceit of Hunger Games in space, I like the direction it's taking either way. So yes, 7. The Ravagers, number 11, written by Tony Bedard and Michael Allen Nelson, art by Diogenes Neves and Geraldo Borges. So last issue, we had Ridge turned back into a little boy. Everyone was at their happiest, and then Deathstroke showed up and killed Ridge because he was hired by Harvest to do so. This issue picks up in the safe house. Beast Boy goes into Tara's bedroom, wakes her up, and she's like, oh, hey, we doing this? This is cool. Beast Boy's like, no, hey, I smell burning flesh, and that's kind of concerning for a number of reasons. And then we cut over into Caitlin's bedroom, where Rose Wilson is there, and is like, hey, wake up, get dressed. And apparently, Rose and Warblade have broken in order to kidnap the Ravagers and bring them to Harvest because 4 issues ago or whatever, they messed up big time and are now looking to get back into Harvest good graces. Meanwhile, there's a camera inside of Caitlin's room that Niles Calder is able to see. And he's like, crap, intruder alert, security protocol, activate animal, vegetable, mineral. And the computer's like, okay, sure, if that's what you want to do. And then Deathstroke pops up behind Miles Calder, stabs him with the weird flaming blade thing, and he bursts into flames. And he's like, all right, 2 down, let's keep going. So Beast Boy and Tara, they're running down the hallway looking for what's going on. The intruder alarm's going off. Thunder and Lightning show up like, hey, anybody else know what's going on? And they say, nope. And they figure, we got to go find Ridge, because he's just a little boy. But Ridge is dead, so we don't have to ever deal with that again. But then Warblade pops out. They blast him back and just like, oh, hey, cool. Glad I got you all up in one spot. Let's fight. Meanwhile, Caitlin and Rose have started fighting. They're just blasting through walls. And Tara's like, Caitlin, what are we doing here? He's like, I don't know, man. Just fight for your life. Do what we can. And behind Rose and Warblade, up walks Deathstroke. And he's like, hey, Rose, remember me? And Warblade's like, oh, well, this just got interesting. So at that point, the Ravagers and Warblade and Rose are like, okay, if Deathstroke's here, we got bigger problems. We need to team up and fight him. Deal, deal. So they all start teaming up on Deathstroke. Meanwhile, it feels like an earthquake is about to break out. Everyone's looking at Tara, and she's like, oh, it wasn't me. I don't know what's going on. And out from the ground, separating everybody, is a man that has animal, vegetable, and mineral powers. And he is a hulking brute beast monster. And Deathstroke's like, oh yeah, no, this is mad scientist crap. That's annoying. So it just starts attacking everybody. He impales Beast Boy's legs with his vegetable powers, and everyone starts firing at it. Caitlin starts running, trying to get to a control room to open up an exit so they can get out. Rose and Warblade give chase. Meanwhile, Deathstroke pops in, and he's like, hey, wait a minute, Rose, before you go, the whole reason I took this job was because you're my daughter, and I want to save you. That's in, like, my deal with Harvest is I'll get you instead of him. And Rose is like, don't you say I'm your daughter. You're horrible. You're not my father. You're just meat. And Caitlin's like, okay, if you guys are doing anything, I'm just gonna go take care of the thing I was gonna go take care of. So she runs off, and Warblade's like, Rose, go after her. I want to see how I'm gonna stack up against Deathstroke. And Deathstroke's like, dude, you're gonna die. Like, and he pulls out his big sword, and Warblade's like, psh, if I'm so scared, why'd you have to go for the big sword? And he's like, because that other weapon isn't meant for you, dingus. So everyone's fighting Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man. Caitlin is like, crap, can we just, like, Rose, can we just deal with that monster first before we deal with our stuff? And it's like, yeah, no, we can do that. So then one page, just everyone combines their forces, and the monster just disintegrates. And it's like, cool, all right, now me and you can have our thing again. But then Warblade chimes in of like, Rose, I think we should run. And then all of a sudden, his head comes bouncing in from the room outside. And Rose is like, okay, friendship back on again. We got to go. And she grabs Caitlin, and they start running away. They make their way into Calder's basement, where there is a secret lab. And Caitlin's like, how did you know about this? What's going on? And the lab is full to bursting with a whole bunch of clones of Caitlin. And Caitlin's like, what the... Calder was cloning me? Why are there clones of me? And Rose in the big shock finale is, what makes you think you're the original? And that's that. So, I'm not opposed to everything just going off the rails. I think that that's actually useful in some storytelling of like, yeah, okay, things go from bad to worse and then to crazy worse. I think this is an example of that, where it is, okay, Deathstroke was in there. We knew that already. But then we also introduced the Ravagers in there. And then we introduced this crazy-ass deterrent of Animal, Vegetable, Mineral Man, which, you know, I knew he existed in, like, DC lore, but he's always been a joke. The fact that he managed to turn him into apparently an actual threat is insane to me. But no, this just feels like... They know this series is ending. Of course they do. Next issue is the finale of it. But, like, it feels like they just went with the all-out, well, if we're going to go out crazy. So, I'm curious to see, because obviously in Team 7, we knew that Caitlin, the original one, was already dead. So it's nice to see we're squaring that circle. Deathstroke, of course, is going to lead into his own book and the stuff going on there. It's just a weird little interlinking of all these titles, and I'm down for it. I like when there's this intercontinuity thing, and this is just fun with it. It's not taking it too seriously, it's just fun. So I'm going to give this a... I'll say 7, just because it's good. It's a nice solid issue, but it's not anything standout. There's nothing to it where I'm like, and this is the most craziest thing or the most well-written thing. It's like, no, it's just, it's an all-out, here we go for the finale, kind of big bang sort of thing, and I like it. So, yes, 7. Team 7, number 7, written by Justin Jordan and Tony Bedard, art by Jesus Merino and Pascal Alixe. So, last issue, Bronson was attacked by some robot thingy and turned into, like, Proto-Superman, who in this comic they call Majestic. So, I'm just going to call him that. And we open up with the island nation of Gamora, and they're like, okay, this was Team 7's last mission. Gamora was like a dictatorship. They had a Kaizen who ruled over it and made a lot of big enemies, but none quite so big as Majestic, who is now swooping in there and destroying literally everything on behalf of Team 7. And the Kaizen is standing there, he's watching, he's like, ah yes, I will use my power in order to take him out. I'm going to fight a god. And a bunch of these, like, kids come up saying, we're ready to serve our country. Just tell us where to go and we'll use our powers against them. And they're like, no, see, your only purpose here is to power me up. And he uses his ability to like drain them of life force or something. Hard to say. But regardless, they get scan warnings of an aircraft coming into their airspace. And they're like, all right, well, shoot it down. I got bigger fish to fry right now. And he walks over to this pedestal that holds this golden skull-looking thing, which is Pandora's box. We'll see it a lot more, but this is Pandora's box. So then we see the Team 7 plane flying in. And, of course, they lost their pilot, I think, last issue. So now the pilot is replaced by Steve Trevor, who I think back before this book even launched, they were saying, oh, remember your Team 7 days? So it's weird that I completely forgot he was supposed to be a part of this. But regardless, he's in this, and he's flying the ship through a bunch of missiles and stuff like that. And Lynch is there as a non-official member right now. And he's like, Trevor, are you sure you're good to fly through all this? And he's like, just go buckle up, and I'll get you there, princess. And he's like, wow, no, nobody talks to me like that. But fair enough if you're going to get us there. So he gets into their center of their drop-off point, and we drop off the current Team 7, which is Lynch, Higgins, and then people we actually care about of Waller, Kurt Lance, Slade Wilson, Dinah, and Grifter. So they arrive, a bunch of Basilisk soldiers start fighting against them, and they're like, geez, guys, this doesn't look so good, but we'll fight our hardest. And then Kurt gets hit by stray gunfire, which freaks out Dinah. As she looks around, she sees a couple other members falling down around her, and she starts yelling out like, no, 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 no. And then she does, for the first time, her canary cry. And she's like, okay, I don't know what Lynch, what did you do to me? And Lynch is like, okay, so I may have activated a couple of your metagenes, but regardless, you already had that stuff inside you. So yes, you now have the ability to do that thing. So let's get up there and take care of the Kaizen. So they move their way into the palace. Slade Wilson is like, so she's like a freak now, yeah? And Waller's like, don't let her hear you say she's a freak. So they make their way in. There's like a moment where a couple of Basilisk soldiers are like, when we're done here, we're getting drinks tonight. And then Slade just kills both of them. And they make their way into the main palace room where a bunch of those kids were there being like, oh, do not worry, Slade Wilson and Team 7. We have seen you coming already, for we see not only of the future, but of the past as well. And they show a vision of the future to everyone in Team 7, which consists of Majestic holding Pandora by the throat, while Grifter, Black Canary, and Deathstroke are all there firing at him. And everyone's like, what in the hell am I looking at here? But regardless, Majestic is also getting the vision, and he's like, oh no, we gotta stop the Kaizen from making this happen, because it's a horrible looking scene. And the Kaizen's already standing next to Pandora's box, and they're like, that's probably the thing that's going to trigger it. We should get him away from that. So Majestic, he was out doing his own thing this whole time. He flies way up into outer space. And Kaizen's like, see? Even Majestic is so scared of me that he's running away. And then Majestic uses his telescopic vision to zoom in on the Kaizen's place and starts coming down at supersonic speeds. And all of Team 7's firing at Kaizen. It's not having any effect. And he's like, today belongs to Gamora and to me. And then Majestic hits the Earth. And apparently he hits the Earth strong enough that it is basically the size of a comet, where all of the water's just coming up as a massive tidal wave. 5 million people hear the sonic boom, and Lynch, describing this story in the future, is like, yeah, Majestic just doomed us all. And even Kaizen's looking out the window like, wait a minute, Jesus, what did he just do? And we just see this giant tidal wave about to engulf the entirety of the island of Gamora. And that's it. It's a pretty quick read. Mainly because there's like 3 2-page spreads that are like maybe 4 caption boxes tops. So not a lot to it. But it's big. It's bombastic. It's the issue before the finale. I appreciate the fact that they are going so big. That being said, this one feels a bit out of place because, like, it's the issue with any prequel anything, is that I don't feel the stakes here because I know that pretty much everyone on Team 7 made it out. Deathstroke's still alive. Amanda Waller's still alive. Dinah still alive. Kurt's still alive. All these people still alive. And in Deathstroke itself right now, we've established that Majestic is also still alive. So because of that, while it is a huge bombastic moment, just because of other books existing, I don't feel like it's that big of a deal, you know? I don't feel like there's any threat of death here. Is it a cool image? Yeah. And if I ignore the fact that I know what's already going to happen, it's big enough that it feels like it might be the death of all of these people, but I know it's not, and the writers know they're not, because I'm pretty sure Tony Bedard was already working on, no, Justin Jordan was working on Deathstroke as well, so he knows what's up. He knows what himself is doing in the other books. So yeah, I don't know, it just feels like a little bit of because it has to be set in the past, it suffers because we know certain things have to end up in certain places, and they aren't able to get around that. So that is my biggest thing with that. Besides it, it's a fine enough issue. I appreciate the idea of Majestic being this proto-Superman, this before even like Superman was the thing, or during just his early days. You got this guy coming in and just destroying an entire island nation, because I feel that is better justification for why people are afraid of metas and of these superpowered people, instead of it being that, well, they literally have never done anything, but they could one day. Having this past event of, no, something awful happened because of one of them, justifies that xenophobia just a little bit better. So overall, I'm going to give this one a Team 7, Issue 7 gets a 7. I feel good saying that. Not great, not standout, but the ending few pages really do sell the enormousness of this event. So yeah, 7. Deathstroke number 19, written by Justin Jordan, art by Edgar, Salazar, and Scot, Eaton. So last issue, Deathstroke was told that he has basically this massive contract on him, and it came from Lynch, his former boss. So now he's going to do that. But this issue first picks up with Gamora back 5 years ago in Team 7, where we see the final outcome from the battle, their last mission of Deathstroke and Grifter are bloodied, but they're getting away on a helicopter, and we see the entire island has been flooded. And then we cut to where Gamora was, but modern day, and Majestic, this superhuman from that book, is coming out of the water, and it's like, we created this guy through our own machinations. We made a Superman that doesn't have a moral code, which is an issue. And so Lynch, he's already got targets locked on this Majestic. He fires a nuclear warhead at him, direct hit explosion, and Majestic just comes out of it more pissed off. Especially he knows the fact that Lynch is the one who fired it. And all the people are like, the nuke failed. What do we do? And Lynch is like, that's a good question. What should we do? And then Deathstroke shows up along with his daughter Rose and Tara from the Ravagers. And he's like, hey, Lynch, I know you just sent this whole thing for me, and you wanted me to take this job for Harvest, and then we did it. Just go read Ravagers in Team 7 if you're confused on what's happening. And then I got my daughter back, and I also brought this girl Tara, because what's Deathstroke without Tara? So at this point, Lynch lays down the line of like, okay, we don't really have a plan, because our plan was we hit him with a nuke. So plan B, well, we're kind of hoping that you have something. But then walking in the door is Deathstroke's remaining family, his ex-wife and his 2 sons, Joseph and Grant. And he's like, actually, that's our plan B. And, you know, everyone's reconciling, like Rose goes over, hugs her mom, and Deathstroke's like, Lynch, why did you bring my family here? And just be like, oh, I gave you back your family as my promise. And it's just like, that's not part of the deal. I didn't want them here. I just wanted them alive. What the hell is wrong with you? So at this point, we see that Joseph, a.k.a. Jericho, has been given superhuman abilities, and he can now mind control all of these soldiers that are holding Deathstroke at gunpoint. And apparently this was because of Lynch, but Adeline is the one who told Lynch to do it. So now he has powers, and Jericho's like, I'm just going to use my powers to control Majestic, and we'll have the power of a god on our hands. And at that point, Deathstroke chews him out. He's like, son, Lynch is using you for his own gain. And Jericho's like, actually, I'm using Lynch. And we see he pulls all the triggers on all these guards' guns so that they blow their own brains out. Lynch is like, that wasn't part of the deal. And he's like, I am going to control my own Superman. You think you have any part of this anymore? And Rose starts getting pissed off. Turns out that Jericho can't control Rose and Slade, or Lynch for that matter, because they all have stronger mental blah, blah, blah. But he would be able to if he spent weeks with them, as he did with his brother and mom. So he now has control over both of them and is using them to fight against Rose, Lynch, and Deathstroke. So, and he also controls Tara because she doesn't have a strong enough mind. So Lynch is going up against Grant, Deathstroke is going up against his ex-wife, and Rose is going up against Tara. And Rose immediately just knocks her out. Like, it's not even a fight. She just elbows her in the face and then calls it off. Lynch and Grant keep on having a gunfight back and forth, and Lynch is trying to get control back. Turns out that Lynch gave himself a X Factor, or a Gen Factor as they call it, and he is now telekinetic. And Slade is about to, like, basically punch his ex-wife in the face, but then he's like, no, damn you, my son, for putting her against me. But Rose manages to get the drop on Joseph, has a sword up against her neck, is about to kill him. But then he pulls the old, like, hey, Rose, remember us growing up? Remember how we went to get ice cream with Mom and Dad? Wasn't that fun? And Rose is like, oh, God, it's my brother. But Lynch, of course, has no qualms about that. He tries to fire the gun at Joseph, and he does manage to pull the trigger, but then at the very last second, Majestic arrives, being controlled by Jericho, and he's like, finally, I thought he'd never get here. And that's the issue. So, just to recap that real quick, because I know it was a bit confusing. Majestic was coming after Lynch. He brought in Jericho because Jericho has some mind control powers, and then Jericho turned against Lynch and is going to use Majestic anyway. And Deathstroke is just kind of there because he just showed up. Okay, so this one is very intertwined, as I said, with Ravagers and Team 7. It's practically required reading if you want to understand what in the hell's going on. Do I think this book does a good enough job of explaining it on its own? No. I think that there's like half a page devoted to it. It is nowhere near in-depth enough to explain how the hell we got from the last issue to here. Regardless, it's not an awful issue, but for so long, you can go back and check. I wanted them to get back to the family stuff, how Adeline and Joseph were doing stuff. And I wasn't even considering Grant as an option there, but regardless, I'm glad to have him back too. The problem being is that it's not their plot. Like, this feels completely independent of whatever their plan should have been against Slade. And now they're just hijacking this one because they're like, oh yeah, wait, we're doing stuff with Team 7 and Ravagers right now. But we also need to wrap up that plot with his sons. So we're just going to put it all in a pot. And it just feels like a hat on a hat on a hat at this point. There's just too much going on. I would much rather it be that, there's this massive hit out on Slade. There's contracts against him, and he's barely able to hold his own. As this began, like way back, there was some contract killer who was like on Slade's level, and he was just scoping him out, saying like, oh, how tough are you? Bring him back. Do that part. Figure out what's going on there. Instead, we're getting this whole other thing of, oh, are you reading Team 7? You need to be reading Team 7. I don't care. I don't want to do that story. I want something original here because I'm reading that story in Team 7. I don't need it regurgitated here. So yeah, it feels like it's not the plot that we should be having here, but if they're doing it, it's okay, I guess. All in all, I got to give this one, though, like a 6, and that's being very generous just because I am reading the other books. If I wasn't reading them and was just on this own, it'd probably be close to like a 5 because it's just out of nowhere saying, here's this other crap going on. We hope you understand what it means. And it's just not good enough to stand on its own. So, yeah, 6. Suicide Squad number 19, written by Adam Glass, art by Cliff Richards. So last issue we had Yo-Yo fighting his sister and sacrificed himself by having Deadshot blow up his neck bomb. This issue just picks up immediately afterwards. We see the explosion has basically demolished this building more or less. There's debris everywhere. And Deadshot is looking around like, geez, okay, that was bad. And it looks like everybody's dead except for me. So at that point, he digs himself out from the rubble as best he can. And he looks around, seeing if he can help anybody. But then rubble starts coming down again. And Waller reaches out and says, hey, Deadshot, I'm here to save you because you don't have my permission to die. And they get their bearings. They look up in the sky and they see the bat signal, which I'm like 99% sure that this story was set outside of Gotham. But I guess now they're just in Gotham. Regardless, they say, all right, we got to get out of here. And Deadshot walks over to... all he can see is the shoes of Harley, her boots sticking out from the rubble. And he's like, oh, Harley, I can't believe you went out this way. And then Harley just walks up from behind him and says, like, hey, what are you doing with my shoes? And it's just a thing. It's a joke. They're just playing it off. Regardless, King Shark's also cool and voltaic. So they all manage to make their way out through a secret underground tunnel or something like that to a different place in the building. And basically, Deadshot stops Waller and says, hey, I'm not going anywhere further than this unless you tell us what in the hell is going on. And Waller says, oh, well, what about your neck bombs? I'll just blow them. You see that the neck bombs work now, so I'm going to do it. And he's like, then do it. Just do it already and free me from this hell. And she pulls out the controller and presses the button. But it turns out this controller's button deactivates the neck bombs. And Waller says, okay, I used to be part of the secret government organization. Regulus killed one of my old teammates. This is personal. And I would like you guys to help me rescue Kurt Lance, because he's an old friend. But you don't have to. And then King Shark's like, okay, but like, what if we don't? And she says, well, then I'll hunt you down and kill you all independently. So the squad looks at each other and it's like, all right, fair enough. We'll help you, I guess. Where are we going? And she basically says, look, just follow my lead. I've got some intel. I know where Regulus is. And then Deadshot makes a point of like, real quick, before we go, is Voltaic, like, dead? Because he's not responding to anything, despite the fact he's still moving around. And Waller says, we'll get to that. It's eventually. So they make their way down to the sewers. And Waller tries making a conversation with Harley about her splitting up with the Joker. And basically, Harley's like, how do you know what happened there? Because she's not aware of the contacts that Waller has. And she's like, you were delirious when you woke up in the hospital. And Harley says, yeah, that makes sense. And then all of a sudden, we see Harley's internal monologue of Harleen, like Dr. Quinzel, talking. So that's just going to be a thing again. I thought we were done with that, but regardless, it's still here. And the internal monologue makes it seem that Harley was faking it the whole time, but now it's actually true. So either way, Deadshot gets a handle on Harley, gets her to calm down. They hear a fight coming down the sewer where everyone else walked on. And when they get to this big like juncture point, King Shark, Voltaic, and Waller are all down. And out comes a swamp creature, like he looks like Swamp Thing, but he's made of sewer water, named Trench. And apparently him and all these other things in the sewers are these swamp angels. And Deadshot remembers that name from a story Black Spider told him. He's like, that's impossible. Regulus killed you. And he's like, yeah, Black Spider told you the story, and he was a traitor. No duh, man. Of course I'm still alive. So Harley has some jokes about having business cards, and then basically uh, Trench says, "Look, I know where Regulus is, but we have Amanda Waller here, and if we give Waller to Regulus, he'll not kill us. So we're just going to do that instead." And then all of the sewer water starts rising up because I guess he has control of it and he's going to drown everybody. But Voltaic puts up a electric shield to protect them. And then when Trench apparently tries to drown Voltaic via his powers, it doesn't work because he's dead or whatever, and he has no idea what's going on. So at that point, Voltaic uses his abilities, shocks everybody else in there. Waller's out cold, and everyone's like, should we bail? Should we leave? And Deadshot's all up for leaving, but then everyone else is like, no, we can't just leave her. We gave our word. And Deadshot's like, are you kidding me right now with this? I'm out. And at that point, a mysterious figure enters, and he says, you gave your word, and that means something, Deadshot. And this is the unknown soldier who was the backup story in GI Combat for like all 8 issues. I have no idea what he's doing here, but regardless, Deadshot's about to open fire on him because he's like, you're a myth, you can't possibly exist. And then the unknown soldier just turns the gun on himself and, or turns the gun on Deadshot, fires a shot, and he's like, now I'm the new leader of the Suicide Squad. And that's the issue. Okay, so there were a few art issues in this book I kind of just glossed over. Mainly during that part when they're talking to Trench, the other 3 team members besides Harley and Deadshot just appear and disappear and wake up and fall back asleep at random. Not great. Not a good look, because it's all on one page. I don't even know how they managed to make that happen, that they were messing it up all on the same page. But regardless, it did. Unknown Soldier. Yep. I don't. Here's the thing. It's a twist. I'm not denying the fact that it's a twist, but why him? And he's in a sewer. I mean, that fits for what I think of the character, but dear lord, this just is it's like the deepest pull I could imagine, and yet also who cares at the same time. I mean, that sounds mean, but like, I don't know. I guess I'm so tired of the series right now because it doesn't feel like there's any focus to what they're doing. Every issue is just rapidly changing direction of, oh, and now we're doing this, and oh, and now we're doing that. We had this idea for Yo-Yo being this whole like, oh, he's gone from being like a nobody into someone with a real heart of gold and whatnot. And now he's dead, and it's like, okay, well, we're just going to move on and do some unknown soldiers here. And Waller is deactivating their neck bombs. I understand this is part of the WTF initiative that DC is doing this month, but it felt like they went too far with it. All they needed was the unknown soldier bit. All this other stuff going on here of Harley is now hearing voices, and Deadshot got shot again, and Yo-Yo's dead, and their neck bombs are deactivated, and unknown soldier. It's too much. There's too much going on in this issue. So overall, I'm going to give this one I'm going to give it a 5.5, honestly. It's slightly better than just straight down the middle of the road, but like not by much. Especially when there's art issues as well. It's just lacking in a lot of ways. So here's hoping that Unknown Soldier turns into an actually interesting story, but not holding my breath there. Constantine #2, written by Ray Fawkes and Jeff Lemire, art by Renato Guedes. So, last issue, Constantine discovered a magical MacGuffin of some compass thing, spread it across 3 parts, and he let his little companion guy die, because that's what Constantine do. This issue picks up with Constantine arriving in Myanmar, and these inner monologues just basically saying the fact of, everyone thinks they'd use magic for like good things and they would never let it influence how they make decisions outside of that, but magic is literally a drug more addictive than you could possibly imagine because you are bending the universe to your will. So even when people get hurt, you just keep doing it. So he lands, he takes a taxi, and he's talking to the guy, and all of a sudden they get rammed by this truck with a bunch of child soldiers, and Constantine gets abducted. And as he wakes up, he sees, he's being held at gunpoint. The kids are smoking his cigarettes, and he's like, okay, well, if you're all kids, how about a magic trick? And he pulls a bullet out of thin air, and he's like, yeah, this came straight from your guns. The question is, whose is it? And as they arrive, all the kids are laughing, so I guess he was genuine, like he was actually trying to entertain them rather than scare them or anything like that. But when he gets there it's just some little grass hut. He gets there, and one of the guys is like, all right, give me your hands. We're tying up, and we're going to put you in this hut. And if you do anything, I'm going to shoot at your kneecaps. And when he gets placed in there, in comes a mage that we saw a hint to last issue of Mr. E, who is this, as far as I can tell, like negatively colored guy in a suit. And we discover he also is very southern. He speaks in a southern drawl, and he's blind. He can't see anything, which you'd think with magic could be fixed. But it was magic that caused it, so I guess not. But either way, he says, hey, we want to know where the thing is, our magical MacGuffin. Tell us where the needle is and where you're hiding it, and we'll just take it and be on our way. And Constantine says, no, of course. So then Mr. E uses some magic to start tearing Constantine's soul from his body. And Constantine gives it up. He says, yeah, okay, I hid it in a cigarette. It's in my pocket. And Mr. E reaches down, grabs a cigarette, and takes the needle. And then he starts just lambasting Constantine. He's like, yeah, well, thanks for giving it to me. I'm still going to kill you, though. That's obvious, but at least I'll make it quick now. And Constantine says, hold on. Before I die, I got to tell you this joke. It's a great joke. It's hilarious. And he says, two guys, one of them is blind. The other one is his best and only friend. Blind guy says, hey, bartender, let me have a shot of your finest whiskey. And another one for my pal here. And the bartender says, your pal where? And then Mr. E pauses and he waits for the punchline. But it turns out Constantine was just using a little bit of parlor tricks to get away as he's saying this. So Mr. E's just standing in an empty room. And we see he's made his way to a temple. And he believes this temple is where the next part of the dial is. Or next part of the compass, which is the dial itself. But when he arrives at the temple, there's a guy sitting there waiting. And he says, hey, you're John Constantine, right? I got a message for you. And Constantine's like, I don't know who you are, and I don't really want to talk right now. But then he transforms, and it turns out this guy was Jim Corrigan, a.k.a. the Spectre. And the Spectre shows up and says, John Constantine, you have caused so many innocents to die. You are 100% about to be righteously judged, and there is no way you can escape it. And Constantine is straight up terrified right now. He has no idea how he's going to get out of this. And as basically the Spectre says, how do you plead? Constantine's like, okay, hear me out. I plead guilty, but this compass thing is going to give these evil mages the ability to essentially overtake God. And if that's the case, you want me to find this thing before them. So just let me do that. And then once that's done, we can talk about my eternal soul and whatnot. And Spectre's like, fair enough. I'll let you continue on your quest, but the moment it's done, succeed or fail, I'm taking your soul. And he's like, cool, fair enough. And Spectre disappears, and Constantine is just leg-shakingly terrified. But he manages to get up and makes his way down into a Buddhist temple where he somehow just knows where the dial is. I don't know how. There's a dish with some candles on it. He crushes it, and then there's the dial. But either way, he has it, and he hops back on a plane going back to London. And he says, yeah, no, of course they're expecting me to go back to London. So when I get there, I'm imagining I'm going to have to fight against them, and I will probably lose and die. But What if I don't? What if I win? Can you imagine the look on their face as I take the needle from them again? God, that would be fantastic. That's why I'm doing this. So then we see back at the little grass hut, Sargon from last issue comes up to Mystery and it's just like, you let him escape because of a joke? And Mystery's like, hey, but you're still a child. You don't deserve the name of Sargon yet. You haven't done anything to earn it yet. And she's like, fine, whatever. I guess we'll see. He's going back to London, and I've got something there waiting for him. And we see the final page is London. Usually, we see Big Ben and the Union Jack and whatnot. And then we also see a horde of people all burned and gouged out and dangling from nooses around their neck. So, yeah, looks like they're waiting for him. Okay, so I like this issue. I think it's solid. I think it's a good way to set up that there's this other threat to Constantine that we can explore at the end of this, because isn't there always the thing of somebody's after Constantine's soul? I like that they're just straight up saying it here of, yep, Spectre says you have done bad things. You are going to be judged. And so we just have to see what Constantine does to get out of that. The strange part to me, though, is that there's numerous points in this book where it doesn't feel like Constantine has anything under control. Like, he's terrified of the Spectre. He just gives up the location of the needle from last issue. And that's not what I think of when I think of Constantine. But it's not in a bad way. It's not in a way of, oh, they're betraying the character. It's giving him more depth. It's making him feel like he doesn't immediately know what to do. He's not just smarmy for the sake of being smarmy. I appreciate that. It's giving the character a lot more to him than just, oh yeah, he just does whatever and he's always got 7 aces up his sleeve. So I enjoyed this book. I enjoy the art style. It's great. I think the only real critique I could have right now is that we're kind of like bum rushing our way through this compass, and I still don't feel like we've really set up what the compass does yet. We've talked about it a lot, but I feel like even just showing a little bit of, oh, if you have a tiny bit of the compass, you can do this incredible thing. Instead, they do nothing unless it's all together. And that works, but it doesn't sell how important the compass is. So, yeah, tiny little critique, though. Overall, do really enjoy this. I'm going to give it a 7.5. I think it's doing a good job at setting up stakes and stuff like that. The art is great. I'm not a huge fan of the cover art style, but the internal arts are fantastic. And yeah, looking forward to the next issue. Demon Knights number 19, written by Robert Venditti, art by Bernard Chang. So last issue, Kane's vampire army was sailing over to Themyscira. They missed the boat, and our Demon Knights were left on the beach. Etrigan is weak, and Vandal Savage shows up. So this issue picks up with Vandal arriving saying, oh, hey, Etrigan can't do anything. He's really the only person I was scared of here, so I'm just going to chop off his head. Anybody want to say no to that? And they're all like, yeah, we don't want you to do that because there's a whole army thing going on. And Vandal's like, I don't care. The entire thing was that he was the one who sentenced us to hell, if you remember that. So I'm kind of going to keep on wanting to kill him. So at that point, they explain the situation, and they're like, hey, look, there's this army, a guy named Kane, they're taking over Themyscira, then they'll rule the world. And Vandal's like, yeah, I've seen a lot of conquerors who said they're going to rule the world. Never really works out for them. It's like, yeah, okay, this guy's different, though, because he's got vampires. They don't say that because vampires aren't a thing, but you know what I mean. And Vandal is still about to chop off Etrigan's head because he's like, look, you said we missed the boat. He's already going. We're not going to be able to catch up, so screw it. Who cares? And Xanadu blasts him back and says, like, well, if we thought we didn't have a chance, we wouldn't be here building a boat now, would we? Would someone explain to Vandal what our plan is? So then we cut over to Themyscira. We see that the boats have landed at nightfall, or in the middle of the night, I should say, and they have completely taken out the beach defense force. And Kane turns to the Amazonian that he turned and says, Farah, what's going to happen? What's the plan? And Farah explains all the Amazons are going to stay in their little fortress, their guarded up city, and they will, at daybreak, prepare their army, be ready for an attack at daybreak, because that's when most armies would attack. But they will sit there, and they will wait, and they will not charge at us. They will simply defend their home until it gets to be after day, once night falls, and then they realize, oh crap, they didn't attack, and we just wasted our energy being defensive all day, and then we'll come in and we'll just slaughter them all. And they're like, cool, great plan, let's do that. So we see that the quote-unquote boat that they have built is essentially just a bunch of logs that are being held together by magic. And we get a little glimpse of Horsewoman, who still has to ride her horse on this raft. And the horse is like, I hate this so much. Please stop making me go over water. And then we see Sir Easton is saying a little prayer or meditating or something and gets a vision of themselves in like a vampire form. Like they have fangs and all that stuff. And Merlin's saying is that an evil that will own your very spirit. So Easton's like, okay, I have a feeling I know what's going to happen here, but we'll see. And then they start arriving on the island nearly at daybreak or sundown, hard to say. So then we go down to Hell. And if you remember, Jason Blood is trying to prove something by staying in Hell permanently. And Lucifer's torturing him and just being like, this is great. I mean, you refuse to go back. Etrigan is probably super weak up there. Like, I love this. Everything about this is great. In fact, you know what? Let's take a look in my little magic mirror thing, how things are going for Etrigan up there. And he pulls out the mirror and it's like, oh, that's Kane. And he's building an army. And he's going to rule the world. Okay, forget everything I just said. You need to go back up to the surface world now. So, back up on Themyscira, night's fallen. The vampires are attacking the Amazonians. And they're managing to hold off a decent amount, but it's only once the Demon Knights come in that they start actually making forward progress. And we just get a couple pages of fight scene here. And obviously all the vampires are doing a good job at decimating the Amazonians, but then Sir Easton comes in, faces down Kane directly, and he's like, hey, I have a feeling that you turning me into a vampire is going to help me find the Holy Grail. Because Merlin told me. And Kane's just like, okay, so are we going to fight or what? And he's like, nope, I just want you to bite me. And so Kane comes up, bites Sir Easton, and is just like, all right, cool, that was great. You tasted great. And at that point, we cut back down into Hell again. And Lucifer's like, okay, but seriously, we're sending you back up now because Etrigan needs to be a part of this fight. And Jason's like, okay, but if we do this, you have to tell Etrigan that he's at my mercy, or else I'm just going to keep him trapped up there at all times and he won't get anything. And he's like, yeah, whatever, I don't care. Get up there. So at that point, Jason switches with Etrigan. Etrigan goes back down into Hell and gets bathed in like hellfire or whatever from Lucifer to get him rejuvenated. And Lucifer's like, here's the deal. You really need to kill Kane because I don't really have dominion over him and I can't let him destroy the world because then what's the point of Hell? So kill him. I'm giving you extra power and in return, I'll owe you one. And Etrigan's like, Lucifer's going to owe me one? Oh, sweet. That's awesome. Yeah, no, I'll be right back. So he changes with Jason again, fully rejuvenated, uses his hellfire to basically just burn all of the vampires all at once. And they just defeat Kane. And Kane is flying up above it, and he's like, well, you've defeated me today, but I deal in eons, something you mortals wouldn't understand. And then all the Demon Knights are like, we're pretty much all immortal, so yeah, it doesn't really work against us. And he's like, well, all right, fair enough, bye. And he transforms into some ravens and flies away. So then Etrigan says goodbye to Xanadu, saying like, oh, I'm going to go get some favors from Hell. I'll be back eventually. Make sure Jason summons me soon enough. And so then Jason takes the form again. And then they come up to Sir Easton. And Easton's, of course, not doing great, but the comment of, I know that this is necessary for me to get the Holy Grail. And Hippolyta and one of the other Themyscirians look at each other and they're like, are you talking about the Holy Grail of Jerusalem? That one from like way back in the day? And Exorcist is like, yeah, that's the one. Why? You know where it is? And it's like, no, but I know where you can find it. So there you go. We're on the Holy Grail quest. The vampires have just been taken care of. Who cares? Not even a thing. And we're on the Holy Grail quest. Gotta say, kind of a little bit of a letdown of how easily these vampires were dealt with. We had to go, if you remember at the beginning of the series, like 7 issues to deal with the questing queen, which didn't have any vampires. It was just a bit of technology and a bunch of normal dudes. But this one, they defeated this unbeatable vampire army in a single issue. And not even that, like 5 pages they managed to beat this. And now we're just on to something else. It just seemed a bit too easy. I think I would have preferred, and especially if Sir Eaton got bitten during a fight, like trying their hardest and yet still one of them fell, I'd be more okay with that because that would at least sell the strength of the army. But instead, Easton just is like, nah, come here, right here, take a bite. And I was like, okay. I get it for the sake of character purposes, but you're really underselling the strength of the vampire army because of this. So yeah, I have some issues with the pacing and the general story direction, but we have been building to this Holy Grail thing as Easton's story, and I appreciate the fact we're finally getting it. It just seemed a little weird to get it on such a... Especially Hippolyta's just like, oh yeah, that cup, I saw it once. I'll tell you where it is. Oh, that easy, huh? So, yeah. Enjoyable, but a little bit... If you were into the vampire story, as I was, a little bit of a letdown. So I'm going to give this one I'll give it a 7.5. It's fine. It's good. The art's great. I really like Lucifer in it. It's just like, oh crap. Okay. Forget. That's his exact words were, forget everything I just said. You need to go back now. I love that line. Fantastic. So yeah, 7.5. And that's it. That's all the comics came out from DC Comics this April 10th, 2013. And I'm really liking this pattern DC has going on where we keep it to like 12 or 13 comics each week. It's working for me. Please don't mess it up the next time that someone falls off schedule. DC, thank you. Anyway, let's talk about what comics are coming out next week. Next week, we have the number 19 issues of Batwoman, Birds of Prey, Catwoman, Nightwing, Red Hood and the Outlaws, Supergirl, Green Lantern, New Guardians, DC Universe Presents, Justice League, Wonder Woman, and Legion of Superheroes. Additionally, we have the number 7 issue of Sword of Sorcery and the number 3 issue of Justice League of America's Vibe. And something I noticed just now, as I've been looking through this, is that Aquaman was pushed to the first week of next month, and Justice League of America has been pushed to the second week of next month. Something to note, both written by Geoff Johns, because as we all know, if Geoff Johns could keep a schedule, the entirety of the DC universe would be completely different. Anyway, that's going to do it for me. Let me tell you where you can say stuff. If you have any thoughts on any of the comics that I listed in this episode, next episode, any episode at all, go ahead and hit me up in the comments. Or there's a Discord, there's a Twitter, there's a subreddit, there's a Patreon. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Use your tax refund on that and you'll get nothing in return. All that's in the description. But yeah, thank you very much for watching, listening, however it is you consume this podcast. Be sure to give a thumbs up, share it with your mother. She'll be so interested in the nice boy talking about things she doesn't understand. And yeah, always try to remember, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.